Creators, I built these 3 apps to run my business just using prompts with Base 44. Let's talk productivity. As a one-man show, I have to handle everything myself, so missing a task isn't an option. I built a scheduling calendar to manage my content, and I added reminders for all the little tasks that keep things moving. Second, my community. I built a content hub where I share free assets, gather leads, and even host paid memberships. Then I added a booking system so people can schedule one-on-one calls with me. Easy. And third, creative ideation. A hub that lets the AI develop my core ideas. One section for brainstorming concepts, another
What's better after 50, Wen? Gym or Tai Chi?
One builds ego, the other
Good afternoon, all. We are about to resume. Please remember to switch off your phones. Thanks so much.
Yes, Mr. Shaskasi.
Thank you, Chair. Brigadier, we were about to start on the APIS acquisition for the Vereeniging and Bramley cases at paragraph 39. And can you take the Commission through the process by which the Vereeniging first the Bramley case was put onto ABIS. It's what you address in paragraph 39.
Thanks, Commissioners. Commissioners, on the 6th of September 2024, the samples which were analyzed by Captain Mahotle were acquired on IBIS system by Warrant Officer Modise. She used the ballistics lab number 193045 of 2024 belonging to the Bramley case. As per standard procedure described earlier above, an IBIS lab number ought to have been generated for the acquisition of these samples. However, due to the agency in processing the ballistic analysis, Captain Mahotle requested for acquisition of the sample prior to case management section generating an IBIS lab number. And as a result, the case was acquired without generating a IBIS lab number. Hence, it was acquired using the ballistic lab number. I attached the images from the IBIS system which were printed out indicating the images which were acquired on the 6th of September 2024, marked as Annexure MNM1.
Brigadier, we've already gone to those images, but maybe if we can just quickly go back. It's page 1 of the Annexure bundle. And first, can you just point the Commission to where the case number is, under which it's acquired on the system?
Commissioner, on page 1 of 1, under the case number PTA 193045/2024 in brackets 1. That is the lab number of the Bramley case 149 of 4 of 2024. At the top where it says case details.
And if I understood your evidence correctly, that is the PTA 193045/24 number is the number that was assigned to it by the FSL registration and not the ABIS registration. And ordinarily you would have an ABIS registration number there as case number, but the FSL number was used in this case.
That is correct. That is correct, Commissioners.
And then to go lower down, if we look at the creation date under cartridge case exhibit details, or even the case details, let's not go low down. The creation date under case details, it's 9/6/2024 at 11:01:33.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Which would be 6 September on the North American dating system.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Then if you go to paragraph 40, you talk about this period of 24 May to 6 September. Can you just address the Commission on whether this just over 3 months, 3.5 months actually, period from the conclusion of the affidavit on 24 May and the entry into the system on 6 September is an ordinary time period, a quick time period, a slow time period?
Commissioner, if we may just look this in conjunction with a paragraph which is still coming, where the specimen was eventually registered at IBIS, given an IBIS lab number. One will realize that had this specimen followed the normal procedure by following the queue, it would have been acquired around December if the member did not request that it must be expedited, because we have records that it was only registered on the 3rd of December. Sorry, my apology for that. It was only registered on the 2nd, it was only, the lab number was created on the 8th of November 2024. That is on paragraph 41. So if you check when it was acquired, then it was acquired on the 6th of September 2024, not after being registered. After being registered, it was only registered on the 8th of November. So if one can conclude that it would have only been acquired in December if it followed the normal conveyor belt as I explained it to commissioners.
Stronger with you, the new parfum, Emporio Armani.
Is to try and get an explanation for the lapse of time. So you've got the Section 212 affidavit at the end of, in May 2024, and and then you say that Captain Modise, I think it is, gets this. You say then on the 6th of September, the samples analyzed are then acquired by Officer Modise. The explanation for the lapse of time between the end of May and September, and considering that this is being done on an expedited basis, what's the explanation for that?
The only explanation is that upon handing it for IBIS acquisitions, we only have the date that we are working on, which is the 24th of May 2024.
Sorry, can I just intervene here, because 24 May is when the 212 was signed, but the completion at FSL was actually 6 June. So the reviewer signed off and completed on 6 June. So it's exactly 3 months, from 6 June to 6 September. And the question really is, why would it take from 6 June to 6 September to enter the ABIS system?
Yes. Through my analysis of precisely that, because it was also a concern from me that if you requested it to be expedited, then why 3 months only later? So when I listened to the explanation and look into the events, how they unfolded, I could understand. I mentioned about a bullet which was retrieved from the deceased, which was sent to the lab. Let me just refer back, on the 12th of August, 2024. What seems to have happened here, along the way, immediately when the member completed the case on the 24th of May, 2024, at that point, there was not much pressure coming from either the investigating officers with regard to the agency of the case. We know that there was a murder, it was treated as a murder like any other murder. So along the way, calls started coming when the bullets came. So during that period when he completed it, it will seem that that was later on, immediately the bullet came. So he waited to finalize the bullet in August. And when he handed over for acquisition, which took place on the 6th of September, it was after he has completed the examination on the bullet, which was received on the 12th of August. So that was the explanation which could address as to why that period.
But Brigadier, that can't be the explanation, because the bullet comes in August, but the 212 in relation to the bullet, if I remember correctly, was dated 14 October. So he'd actually entered the file into ABIS on 6 September before he completed his ballistics examination in relation to the bullet. We'll get a copy of that 212 from the case file, but I'm fairly certain that the data of the, I mean, if we go back to the entries that you discussed earlier, the
Is it in 37.3?
I beg your pardon, Commissioner?
I'm saying, are you looking for paragraph 37.3 on page 17?
The third entry, indeed. The entry only gets assigned to him on 11th of October, and he issues his 212 on 14 October, and the entry is completed on 23 October. So the bullet happens after ABIS acquisition on 6 September. You do address, I mean, if you look at the top of page 19, you speak to a bottleneck that we actually didn't address earlier, which is, which you address in paragraph 40 at the top of page 14, which is, well, maybe if you can just consider that paragraph and maybe read for the Commission what you state in that sentence that says in this regard.
Just paragraph again, Commissioner.
It's paragraph 40 of your affidavit. Starts on page 18, but it seems to me that the critical point is the last few sentences of that paragraph, where you deal about the bottleneck on getting into ABIS, just for registration, not for acquisition by the system.
The one we start with turnaround times.
Let me take you to this point that you make. You say that the ABIS system at head office receives on average 1,700 samples per month to enter into ABIS. With a current full complement of ABIS analysts working full-time on the process, the section has the capacity to enter approximately 1,300 samples per month. So the existing backlog at head office is continuing to grow at the rate of approximately 400 samples per month. Now, what are you talking about here? Is that acquisition on the system, or is it about simple registration at ABIS? What are we talking about there?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, on this paragraph, I was referring to the actual acquisitions of the specimens after all the administrations has been completed.
I hear you. So that issue there, 1,700 samples, an increasing backlog that increases by 400 per month, deals with acquisition, which is what took place on 6 September 2024.
That is correct, Commissioner. That is correct.
And is there any way of, I mean, if you want to fast track an individual file, is there a way of getting your file acquired sooner than 3 months?
The only way is when you jump the queue and pressurize whoever is available to acquire it as speedily as possible, but you'll have to jump the queue, commissioners.
But on what you say in paragraph 39, Captain Mokgotlo did actually jump the queue. Because if he hadn't jumped the queue, we wouldn't have a a ballistics lab number, 193045, in the ABIS system, we would have had the regular ABIS lab number that was eventually assigned on 8 November.
That is correct, Commissioner.
So he jumped the queue, but he jumped the queue after 3 months, as it were.
Yes, it's also something which, like I said, I also had to apply my mind and see what actually happened. But in reality, if you check the flow of work coming, it is possible. And when you consider when the case was eventually registered under normal circumstances.
Can we then move to the acquisition of the ABIS lab number? And that you address in paragraph 41.
As indicated above, the Vereeniging and Bramley samples were acquired in the IBIS system prior to an IBIS lab number being generated by the case management section. However, the case management section still, at a later state, generated lab 5655427/2024 on the 8th of November 2024. I referred to this earlier on.
Can I ask, how would that have happened? We've got Captain Makgotlwe bringing the file and jumping the queue in September. How would an ABIS lab number then get, how would the file go back into the system so it gets an ABIS number? What physically would have happened?
Commissioners, the case files are managed by case management section. Once a case has been finalized, it goes to case management, either for dispatching, scanning of the 212 report and dispatching of the exhibit, and for archiving. Because for the IBIS lab number to be generated, a sticker must be affixed on the front page of the case file on the far right. So if this is a ballistic case file, for example, you will have one sticker on your left and one sticker on your right. The sticker on this side will be the ballistics with the lab number, and the one on the right will be the IBIS lab number. So as they process those case files, they will check the one that do not have the sticker. According to them, it means there is still some work outstanding. It means they must still generate an IBIS lab number on that particular case files. So the only logic is that once the member who acquired the specimen under the ballistic lab number, once she is done, she returned the case file to case management. But because there was no explanation, case management saw it as like all the other cases that must still go to IBIS for registration. Hence, they generated a lab number on the 8th of November 2024. That lab number, then, therefore, because there was a lab number of IBIS, it has to, again, follow the process to be acquired. And only then, when the operator was supposed to acquire, when she opens the case file, she realizes that this case has already been acquired on the IBIS system. She then...
Can I just stop you there? This case officer would then be Warrant Officer Shihlangu. Is it pronounced Shihlangu or Sihlangu?
Sihlangu.
Sihlangu. I was several of your experts, not your experts, your officers yesterday were using Shihlangu. So Warrant Officer Sihlangu gets this file again on 2 December 2024. How would she, at that stage, know that it's already gone through the ABIS database?
Commissioners, there is a log that is attached inside the case file, which keeps record of the dates, sealback that are open, events, So it's like a diary that is attached inside the case file, where you record everything that is happening with that case. So obvious, when you open, surely should have seen, you could have realized that there's records that a seal bag was open and the specimens were acquired. Therefore, I need not proceed with this case.
If you can then continue.
The person who generated this lab number, I've explained this, did not have sight of the fact that the samples had already been acquired on the IBIS system. And then on the 2nd of December 2024, the same lab number, 565427 of 2024, was assigned to Warrant Officer Sihlangu. We have already explained this for acquisition purposes. Upon realizing that the specimens for the Vereeniging case were already acquired on IBIS through ballistic lab number 193045 of 2024, related to the Bramley case, she did not proceed with the acquisition of these specimens, as the specimen already existed on the IBIS database. She then took the case to Warrant Officer Mbiza for review. She's responsible for review. And on the 3rd of December, Warrant Officer Mbiza then cancelled the number 565427 of 2024 on the FSL system. And the reason given in the system reads incorrect registration. So, Commissioners, what was cancelled was an entry on the FSL system, which was not supposed to have been created in the first place.
And if you can just explain that, why wasn't this entry 56427 of 24 one that shouldn't have been created in the first place?
In the first place, because the specimens were already acquired using the ballistics lab number. So if the members had sight to that, they could not have proceeded to register a lab number again.
Can we then just look at the registration screenshots that you attach as Annexure MNM2 from page 11 of the Annexures file? And can you describe what we see on the first page of that annexure, page 11?
Commissioners, this is a printout from the FSL system, which contains the records of this particular case. It gives you the lab number of the case, the entry number, and the person to whom the case was assigned to. And then it gives you the details of the section IBIS. It also gives you the reason why the case was cancelled, and the comment cancelled, then the reason why it was cancelled.
And then if we go over the page?
When you go over the page, it's another window that you open on the system. It gives you the lab number of the case, the person to whom the case was assigned, the section. Now it gives you all the details. Now, the date when the case was registered, the date when it was assigned, and the date when it was completed, and the reason for completion, and the person who completed it on the system.
And there we see that cancellation is recorded as having been completed on 3 December 2024 by Mbiza.
That is correct, Commissioners.
And the third screen on page 13?
This is just the same window, but in a magnified, and it does not give the it does not give the entire information, but it's the same window print out, Commissioners.
Can you then describe the entries
This is your brain when you're struggling to focus. And this is your brain when you're in the zone. But getting in the zone and staying there, that feels more like luck than something you can control. So that's why we made Brain FM. It's like a do not disturb setting for your mind, and it gets you focused in just 5 minutes. Using science and sound, Brain FM guides your brainwaves into an optimal state for productivity called neural phase locking, which lets different parts of your brain work together more easily. Compared to average music, Brain FM actually increases and sustains your focus over time, letting you stay in the zone for as long as you want. You can also use Brain FM for relaxation, meditation, and even sleep. But don't take our word for it. Join millions of others and try it yourself for free and see what you get done.
2024 in KZN. And it relates to the exhibits firearms which were recovered from the Bramley when the suspects were arrested. And this entry was then assigned to Warrant Officer Kaida. He is stationed in KZN Ballistics. He finalizes the case on the system on the 4th of October 2024.
And the Vereeniging case?
The Vereeniging case, again, it was also sent down to ballistics in KZN, and a lab number was generated for the same case, 634383, which was generated on the 10th of December 2024. This was relating to firearms, and the entry was assigned to one Captain Mkachwa on the 11th of December 2024, and it was finalized. It was, Captain Mkachwa must just state that he was deployed from our office to assist the political killing task team in KZN at that time. The system was finalized on the system on the 7th of January 2025, Commissioners.
And the ABIS acquisition in KZN?
Commissioners, the Vereeniging and Bramley cases in KZN were also acquired on IBIS system. A lab number 469673 of 2024 was generated for the Bramley case in KZN, and it was acquired by Warrant Officer Mkhize from KZN using lab number 507815 of 2024. On the 16th of January 2025, the Vereeniging case with lab number 634383 of 2024 was again acquired by the IBIS in KZN on the following lab number 16554 of 2025 and acquired by Warrant Officer Mzimela.
And the ABIS number for that acquisition?
It is 16554 of 2025, Commissioners.
And those are the only entries in the audit trails on the FSL system and the ABIS system. Well, if we go back, from paragraphs 41 to 48, you have described all of the entries on the audit trail of the ABIS and FSL system for these two files.
In KZN, yes, Commissioner.
No, because if you go back to 41, sorry, you're right. I need to take you further back. It's from paragraph 33 on page 15 to paragraph 48 on page 21. You've described every single entry on the audit trails on the FSL and ABIS systems for these two cases, be it in head office or KZN?
That is correct, Commissioners.
And to the best of your knowledge, it's not possible to tamper with those audit trails?
Not possible, Commissioners.
Advocate Chaskalson, can I ask you a question here? Brigadier, if the system in Pretoria works so well, why did the two cases end up in KZN? What's the reason for that?
Commissioner, it's a question that I'm also asking I'm asking myself that question, Commissioner. And I do not have an answer, Commissioner, because myself as the custodian of cases in the head office, Pretoria, if there's any request, it must go through my office, and there must be a reason. If the client is not happy with my service, I've got a procedure to attend to client's complaint. So if it was because there was some unhappiness, there's a procedure to deal with that unhappiness. But in this instance, it only came under my attention at a later stage that cases were, in actual fact, being committed between the two labs on a regular basis. So I cannot give an answer as to what was the reason for that, Commissioner.
If I remember the evidence of the investigating officers, it was suggested that at least in the affidavits, there were some omissions, either deliberate or negligent, I cannot remember. And the ballistics reports were not done properly. Hence, it was resolved that the cases be taken to another lab in KwaZulu-Natal. Are you aware of that?
I only came aware after this year, and I attended to it. I'm sure it's in my statement. But we have a procedure. If that was the case, it happens, then we deal with it. So if that was the reason, but I was not informed when they were taking them as to what was. I only find out when it was brought under my attention that those cases were in KZN, that is when I happened to know about that. Okay, those cases, Commissioner.
Are you aware that in the 1112 affidavits, there were omissions relating to, I think, the 15 cartridges that were recovered in Bramley?
Commissioner, I'm aware that there were typos, type errors.
No, not typos, omissions.
Commissioner, I would like to explain, if I may be given an opportunity, what we said to be commission, what were they? I will have to refer to the statements because that it will explain exactly what happened. If I may just given leave to open that statement, Commissioner. It will be evidence leader, it will be MMN4, annexure MMN4.
That's the report on a non-conformance report.
That's correct, Commissioner. And then you go to the statements.
Okay.
On page 25.
On page 20. So this document, can we just explain to the Commission what this document is? So to start off, you've just confirmed it is a non-conformance report. When was it produced?
Commissioner, the non-conformance.
Yes.
Commissioner, it's in my statement. There was an incident, and I was visited by the investigators on the 8th of January 2025. I'm sure I'm ahead of the evidence leader on this one. 8th of January 2024, which is covered in my statement on page.
It's page 24.
Yes.
And what was their complaint to you?
Commissioner, their complaint was that they came to look for a statement which they've discussed with the analyst, their concern was that there were omissions of results in the statement. I then asked them to give me a copy of that statement. Upon perusing the statement, which is the one which start on page 18, I realized that it was the statement.
Can I take you back, Brigadier? It seems that their complaints were. You've raised a complaint about omissions in the results. There are other, I mean, if one looks at the top of page 25, there are other complaints. There's a complaint about discrepancies in the initial affidavit, which would be the May 2024 affidavit, and the backdating of the amended affidavit that sought to address the initial problems. So there were, and there was an underlying complaint also about an omission of results, an omission of reference to other matches or other hits. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
What was your response to these complaints?
I requested them to produce the report, which I went through in their presence. And indeed, I could see that there were typing errors.
Why do you describe them as typing errors?
First thing, Commissioners, I will go to the pages. When I checked, because they were saying that the findings of the 15 cartridge cases of AK-47 were not done. There was no reference to those findings. So I said, then I checked the statement. The first thing that I saw, I wanted to see if in the statement, did the analyst did the work? So when I checked on paragraph 10, firstly, under the microscope, maybe I will take the commissioner slowly so that they can understand, because you won't see it immediately. If you go to paragraph 10, I will read it for the record. I examined the fired cartridge cases.
Sorry, Brigadier, just because we're going to look at least two versions of this affidavit and possibly a third, can you just indicate where you're reading from? And I think you're reading from page 25 of the annexure bundle.
That is correct, Commissioner.
And that is a copy of the original report that was furnished in May 2024.
That is correct, Commissioner. I examined the fired cartridge cases and bullets mentioned in paragraph 3.1, paragraph 3.4, paragraph 4.9. I've cycled 4.9. I'll come back to that. Paragraph 4.10, paragraph 4.11, and tests mentioned in 7.2 and 7.5, and compared the individual and class characteristics markings transferred to them by the firearm components during the firing process using a comparison microscope, and found. I'm going back to that 4.9. If you go to the statement and check the exhibits mentioned in 4.9, I'll give the paragraph now, 4.9. 4.9 on page 23 is the 15 7.62 by 89 millimeter caliber fired cartridge cases, and mark them AA3A to AA30. Now, the analysis is telling...
Can I just stop there, Brigadier? Those are 15 AK-47 cartridges in the Bramley case that were found in possession of the suspects when they were arrested in Bramley.
That is correct, Commissioner. Now, when you go back to that paragraph that I read, 10, the analysis is telling you that I compared these cartridge cases the test, which are mentioned here. Now, let's look at paragraph 10.2 and 10.6 simultaneously. 10.2 and 10.6. If you check there, he says, the cartridge on 10.2, the cartridge cases mentioned in 3.4, I've cycled the 3.4. You go to 10.6, he says the bullet core mentioned in 3.4. Again, so you've got 3.4 there. That tells you that you've got a problem. Now, when you go to 3.4 to see the description of the exhibit in 3.4, 3.4 describe the exhibit as two 7.62 millimeter caliber fired bullet cores and mark them lap number AA3 and AA9. Those are bullet cores. So the findings of the bullet core is in 10.6. He says the bullet cores mentioned in 3.4 are not suitable for microscopic comparison due to damage. So we know that those core are unsuitable for comparison. So if we go back to paragraph 10.2, he started the sentence by saying the cartridge cases mentioned in 3.4. We have already dealt with 3.4, and we know it's not cartridge cases. Those are bullets. And they are unsuitable for microscopic comparison. But this paragraph says, these cartridge cases mentioned in 3.4 were fired in the firearm mentioned in 4.1. We go to the description of the exhibit in 4.1. It says 7.62 by 39 millimeter caliber AK model 47 assault rifle with serial number 575363 with 4 magazines. He's saying now, these cores mentioned in 3.4 were fired by this AK. And we know now that there's no way you can compare them because they were unsuitable for comparison. So the mistake is glaring. And now, can it be interpreted, can it be interpreted as tampering? I say I have a procedure in place to investigate when we come across such incidences. And the procedure is to register a non-conformance, investigate. The investigation will tell you what happened. And in these instances, commissioners,
here's what could happen if you don't have a will. 1. Your estate is distributed by South African law, not your wishes. 2. An outdated will could leave your partner or children with nothing. 3. Ugly family feuds could tear loved ones apart. 4. Without a professional executor, your estate could take years to finalize under government control. 5. And the scariest? Your children's inheritance could go to the government guardian's fund. Don't let this happen to your family. And the best part? Learn how to pay 0 executor fees and eliminate estate taxes, leaving more money in your family's hands where it belongs. Click Apply Now to claim your free will, expertly drafted by the leaders who handle 8,000 to 9,000 wills every month. It's quick, it's free, and you'll receive it in just 48 hours.
10.2 should have read as follows. The cartridge cases mentioned in 4.9 were fired in the firearm mentioned in 4.1. That's how it should have read.
That is how it should have been read,
so
commissioners.
The 15 cartridge cases in paragraph 4.9 were omitted, or there was an error there, however you want to characterize it.
I had to go further to check the comparison mic form in the case file with the handwritten notes. I noticed that in the microscope, the member confirmed the cartridge cases in them, and he has written notes that these 15 cartridge cases were fired from this firearm. So The only question is when he transferred the results into the affidavit, he made an error with the paragraphs. That was my explanation. That's my explanation, commissioners.
It seems to me there are two possibilities. The one possibility is it was a sloppy error, that in recording what happened to the cartridges that he mentions, cartridges and bullets mentioned in that first line of paragraph 10, a warrant officer Makgotlwe, instead of writing 4.9, wrote 3.4 and just got the cross-reference wrong. That's the one possibility. The other possibility is that it was deliberate, and it was an attempt to sabotage not the investigation, but the prosecution. But I want to interrogate the second possibility, because that is certainly how it was perceived by the investigating officers. But it seems to me that if you were going to sabotage the investigation or the prosecution this way, it would be rather strange. Because if you look at what else he says in his reports, bear in mind that what he should have said in 10.2 is the 15 cartridge cases that were found in Bramley, which wasn't the crime scene of the murder, were fired in the AK-47 seized in Bramley. That's what he should have said. Instead, he said something that ultimately is clearly self-destructive. But look at what he said in 10.1. He said the bullets mentioned in 3.3, and if we go back to 3.3, the bullets mentioned in 3.3 are AK-47 bullets retrieved from the scene of the murder. You'll see that at page 22. They're in the Vereniging file, and it's paragraph 3.3. So he positively confirms that the AK-47 bullets at the scene of the murder are fired from the AK-47 that the suspects are caught with. That seems to me the single most important finding in relation to the AK-47 in terms of linking the suspects to the murder in Vereniging, and that he confirms. But he goes further. He mentions in 10.3 the cartridge cases mentioned in 3.1, that's the Parabellum, the 9mm cartridge cases found at the scene in Vereniging, and 4.11, that we see at 23. That's one fired cartridge case found in Bramley. So both cartridge cases found both at the murder scene in Vereniging and at the arrest in Bramley are fired from the firearm mentioned in 4.7, which I think is the Taurus firearm, which was seized from the suspects. Again, if you're looking to sabotage the prosecution or the investigation, it's strange to tie the suspects to cartridge cases found on the scene of the murder and a cartridge case found in their possession at the time, because that would definitely link them to the murder scene. Then, similarly, 10.4, the bullets mentioned in 3.2. These are 4 9mm caliber bullets found on this murder scene at Vereniging. He confirms that they are fired from the firearm in 4.7, the Taurus firearm. So he has tied the suspects to the murder scene with his conclusions in respect of the Taurus and the AK-47. What he hasn't done is tied the gun in the possession of which the suspects were found to cartridge cases that were also found in their possession at the time. It seems to me that of all of the findings that one would need to convict these people, the one that is of least value is to show that when you arrest them and they're carrying empty cartridge cases and a rifle, the empty cartridge cases were fired from the rifle. You know that they had both the empty cartridge cases and the rifle at the same time. That seems to me the least important of all of the conclusions, and that's the one that he got wrong. So it does seem to me that viewed in isolation, this error certainly doesn't, of its own, point to a deliberate attempt at sabotage. But there are other mistakes that may make the situation different. So let me take you to...
Don't you want the witness to comment?
Well, can you comment on what I've put to you in relation to whether this is deliberate sabotage or just a sloppy error?
Thank you, Commissioners. My emphasis on the 10.1, the bullet. In the ballistic language, when one is able to link a bullet with a firearm, that, for us, is a big plus for the case as compared to the cartridge. I'm not undermining the cartridge cases, but a bullet, in most cases, is removed from the deceased. So if you can be able to link the firearm to the bullet which was removed from the deceased, you have undoubtedly placed the firearm on the scene. And under these circumstances, this is what the member has done. And I'm sure if he did that with a mind to sabotage, his brain needs to be examined. There's something wrong with him, because the evidence suggests otherwise, Commissioners.
Well, I just need to correct you on one issue there, Brigadier. These bullets were found on the scene, but not in the body of the deceased. Remember that the bullet in the body of the deceased is the subject of a separate report on the 14th of October. But for the record, I mean, we will look at that report with Captain Mkachwa. But for the record, that report, also prepared by Captain Makgotlwe, confirms that the bullet taken out of the body of the deceased was linked to I think it was the AK-47. It may have been the Taurus pistol, but we'll deal with that with Captain Mkachwa tomorrow. These bullets were bullets picked up on the crime scene. They weren't recovered from the body of the deceased.
Mr. Chesterton, if you're moving on, can I just ask on this?
I'm not moving on from the report as a whole, but I'm moving on from this section of the report.
That's my question. Thank you. Brigadier, and it's really me trying to understand, to follow your evidence, the cross-referencing that you're doing between the different paragraphs 3, paragraph 4, and then where the findings are made. What does it mean that in paragraph 3, for example, he says, I received an intact sealed evidence bag with, and then he gives a number, right?
Yes.
And then he describes what he found in that number, and as I understand it, of interest has been 3.4, subparagraph 3.4. And then you go to paragraph 4, it's a completely different bag where he describes what's in that bag. It's a different number. And he describes what he found there. And in fact, in particular 4.1, he says a sealed evidence bag, which is something that we're discussing now, and he gives a number there in 4.1. And then you go to 4.9, it's a different number. Now, given the cross-referencing, where you were referred at page 25 to 4.9, and you've done the cross-referencing to show us that, in fact, he did do the examinations and he's accounted for them, what does it mean that there are different numbers to this? Because in my mind, it suggests he had different specimens in sealed evidence bags.
That is correct, Commissioner, because these were two cases.
Yes.
He had the Bramley case and the Vereeniging cases, and each of the exhibits were packaged separately in a tempered seal bags. So he was referring to those seal bags as he opened them and as he received them, Commissioners.
Yes. So 4.9, as I say, it has its own bag number, right? It has its own sealed evidence bag number. Where does one see, from your explanation, that he's made findings about what was in that bag which has a number ending 207.
I read paragraph 10 where he is now giving his findings.
Yes.
And in that paragraph, that's where now he referred to all the microscopic comparison that he was doing, he was conducting, and he made reference to that paragraph 4.9, which tells me that it was part of his microscope work. On paragraph 10, I said he mentioned all the paragraphs with cartridge cases, bullets, which were supposed to have been compared with the test. And that 4.9 appears on that paragraph. It means he worked on it as well.
So do you say 4.9 appears in paragraph 10?
Paragraph 10, yes, Commissioner.
Where in the findings in paragraph 10 does it appear?
He starts with a preamble
Yes.
of what he is going to do.
Or of what he examined?
Yes, yes.
And then from 10.1...
Then from
up to
10.1, it started to be now specifics.
Yes, and that's a part I'm not understanding, and it may well be it's me, where you say he has made findings about the specimen in paragraph 4.9, right? So he says, I examined 4.9, the casings or the cartridge cases that are in paragraph 4.9, and then one goes to 4.9 to see what is in 4.9, and what you find in 4.9 is 15 7.62 by 39 caliber fired cartridge cases. So we know that's what is examined, and that's what he tells us in the first line.
Yes,
and then my reading of the rest of that paragraph 10 is from 10.1 to 10.6. He then tells us what findings he made in respect of those cartridge cases that he examined.
Yes,
what I'm not understanding is where in this 10.1 to 10.6 do you say he makes findings about what is described in 4.9?
Thanks, Commissioner. That is where I was referring to paragraph 10.2 and 10.6 and said that he referred to 3.4 in paragraph 10.2, and he also referred to 3.4 in paragraph 3, in paragraph 10.6. Then I said, it doesn't make sense that he will refer to the same paragraph in two different findings. He can't say in paragraph 10.2, cartridge cases mentioned in 3.4. And again, he can't say the same with paragraph 3.4 in paragraph 10.6, the bullets cost mentioned in 3.4. That in itself is a problem because it tells you 3.4 on paragraph, how possible is that you compare these exhibits in 3.4 and you made findings in two different, you made findings on the same exhibit twice. So the only explanation is that on paragraph 10.2, it was supposed to be 4.9 as opposed to 3.4. Because we now know that 3.4 are not cartridge cases. 3.4 refers to bullet core. And we are saying that those bullet cores were unsuitable for microscopic comparisons. So if you refer to the 3.4 in 10.2, definitely that is a mistake. As to how do you attribute that mistake is something else. That is what I was saying, Commissioners.
And the reviewer missed the mistake? I'm assuming the 112 was reviewed. So, sorry, 212.
That is correct, Commissioner.
In terms of the process you described this morning, you said these statements or affidavits would be reviewed. So are you saying the reviewer also missed that mistake?
Commissioner, when I checked the case file, the review checklist was signed by a reviewer. So no doubt, the reviewer also missed this. And not only this one, they also missed, if you check on paragraph 13.5, instead of saying 24 March, May, they say 24 March. 13.6, instead of saying 24 May, he says 24 March. So both the reviewer and the member missed those mistakes, commissioners.
Brigadier, in fairness to the reviewer, we've seen the case file. Again, it was something I was going to address with Captain Mkachwa. The reviewer actually did not sign off on this file, on this report. The reviewer was asked to sign off and circled no, and gave a set of instructions of errors, and cross-referred to errors that she had put in the Vereeniging case file, indicating what had to be corrected. So the reviewer, in fact, wasn't at fault here. The reviewer identified errors. But the question still remains, how did this report go out when the reviewer had said no and errors were not corrected? The reviewer didn't sign off a second time. It's an issue we'll deal with through Captain Nkachwa tomorrow. But there are other issues that I'd like you to, sorry, but just to get back to Commissioner Baloyi's concern. It's correct, I mean, everybody agrees that the reference to 3.4 in paragraph 10.2 is a clear error. It's contradictory for several reasons. One, 3.4 is not cartridge cases, it's bullet cores. Two, the bullet cores are stated in 10.6 not to be suitable for microscopic comparison because of damage. So if they're not suitable for microscopic comparison, you can't link bullet cores to a firearm mentioned in 4.1. And then also, you'd never have two different findings on the same bullet cores. And the one cross-reference which we don't see in 10.1 to 10.6 is the cross-reference to 4.9. To pick up on Commissioner Baloyi's query, and just to clarify what you said earlier, but what might not have been fully understood, is you have inspected the working notes of Captain Makgotwe. We don't have them in this file, but you have inspected them, and what you saw, you just testified, in those working notes is that he did make the match from the cartridge cases in 4.9 to the firearm mentioned in 4.1. So his working notes reflected that match. And just to complete that picture, when he was asked, I think we've had evidence thus far, we may, it's an annexure to General Kumalo's case. The prosecutor pointed out the discrepancy in 10.2, pointed out the fact that the cartridges in 4.9 were unaccounted for, and asked him to correct his report accordingly. And if we go to page 33 of the same folder, when he was asked to correct his report, he corrected it to confirm that 10.2 should, well, he included the reference to 4.9 in 10.2. So we do know that what he should have put in there was 4.9.
That is correct, Commissioner.
You've mentioned other errors in the report. You've mentioned the references to March instead of May in 13.4 to 13.6. In fact, you've got the same mistake at paragraphs 13.2 and 13.3. That's on page 25. None of those mistakes strike me as evidence of sabotage, but there is another mistake which may well be evidence of sabotage, and I want to take you to that. If you go to paragraph 4, in paragraph 4, what you see is, he states the following: On 24 May 2024, during the performance of my official duties, I received an intact sealed evidence bag with number, and he gives a number, marked inter alia Bramley case 140/04/2024. Now that number, that case file number is the wrong number. The correct number is 149. And I want to put a scenario to you. I may be wrong, but I want to put this scenario to you. The way that criminal prosecutions ordinarily proceed is, in advance of the trial, the prosecutor draws up a list of admissions that the defense, that it wants the defense to make. It says, I want you to admit A, B, C, and D. And in a case like this, on that list of admissions would be the correctness of the ballistics report of Captain Magotle. If the defense makes that admission, no one is called to court to testify in relation to ballistics. And the state closes its case, relying only on the ballistics report of Captain Magotle, which is not disputed. Now, it is certainly arguable that if the defense has done its work closely and has spotted this mistake, they will say when the state has closed its case, or when they argue at the end, that none of the weapons seized can be linked to our clients, to the accused, because the evidence bag that the report speaks to is an evidence bag marked Bramley case 140/04/2024. And our accused case is Bramley case 149/04/2024. So you haven't shown a chain of custody from the scene to the ballistics examinations. So what we see in paragraph 4 may be a typing error. It may have been, instead of typing 0, he typed 9. They're next to each other on the keyboard. But it may also have been a quite sophisticated attempt to sabotage the prosecution. What's your comment on that?
Commissioners, I will explain this according to our procedure, our processes, not taking away what the council has indicated. When you read what that paragraph says, it says, on the 24th of May 2024, during the performance of my official duties, I received an intact seal evidence bag with the following number, marked inter alia. In our environment, that inter alia, analysts are taught that they must write it as it is. If the investigating officer has written a wrong case number, you document it as you see it, inter alia, as you see it on the package. So I see here the case number is wrong, but without having the advantage to see the seal bag and see what was it written originally, I cannot comment whether the member did that with the purpose. But I'm just saying that if it is marked wrongly, you marked it because we have come across the same argument in court where the defense will say the bag that you received was marked this, inter alia. And you, knowing the correct case number, you write it according to how you know the correct case number. They take issues with you as well, because they say you have now tampered with the chain of custody. That is not how you received it marked. You received it marked with this case number, but you wrote the correct case number. So it will be interesting to see in the original seal bag, how was it written? That is my comment with regard to that issue, Commissioners.
And that original bag, as I understand it, should be still stapled to the ballistics folder for the Bramley case.
That is correct. We do that, Commissioner.
So we can, Captain Kachwa, I think, has that file, and we can investigate that with him tomorrow.
That is correct, Commissioners.
May I just ask Mr. Chesterton, does it mean, Brigadier, that from what you've explained, that you know the correct case number, but the evidence bag has got a different case number? Does it mean that your processes do not permit for inquiry with the investigating officer? So let's assume what you've said is what happened in this case, because clearly we know from the report that Makotwe knew the case number, because right at the top of page 22, there's Bramley Cas 149, so he must have known the correct case number. If he received the evidence bag with 140, saying the case number is 140, do your processes not require that he makes inquiry or permit that he makes inquiry with the evidence leader, with the investigating officer?
It does, Commissioner. If, for example, here, on the covering letter, the case number was also wrong, then in that instance, it means we are dealing with a different case number. But what I say, you write, you document it as it is. Sometimes you'll find out other investigating officers, for example, he may start with the case. He may not write the name of the station. Maybe write case number 140 of 04-2024, omitting the station name. You may not add the station name, even if you know that it's Bramley, because that's how it's written on the covering letter. But if it's a mistake that affects the case, which in any way is a wrong case, in that instance, we contact there's a form, there's a procedure, there's a statement that you complete, depending on whether you noted that mistake once we have opened the parcel or before. Then we return it back, or we make means to contact the investigator to come and correct and explain. But in this instance, it's a mistake, but it is, according to this paragraph, you document it as you see it. Hence, I'm saying this can only be ventilated when we see the seal back.
Can we then turn to the corrected affidavit, which starts at page 28.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one, to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality, right now.
The cartridge case is mentioned in 4.9, which is what it should have referred to all along. And if we go to 13, we see that the errors on the dates still remain. And that's true. The wrong references to March are in 13.2, 13.3, 13.4, 13.5, and 13.6. But if we go to the signature page, on page 35, we see that the date of the signature still says 24 May 2024. And we know that this wasn't deposed to in May 2024. It was deposed to, we think, in October sometime that year, certainly after May, because it was only after the the prosecutor had written in September saying, please correct the problem in relation to the 15 cartridges. And that was also one of the complaints that was made by the officers who came to see you. What was your response to that complaint?
Commissioners, my observation when I went through this statement, there's only two scenarios that I think happened here. Analysts are doing their own typing. In the past, we used to have typists, but they resigned, and we no longer we don't have typists. So analysts started to do their own typing. So as they do their own typing, I think what happened is that if the analyst starts the case on the 26th of October and finish the case on the 27th of October, they happen to have that habit that they also type a date for the commission of oath up front. So if you check on 8.8, the date which is there was typed when the report was compiled on the 24th of May. Now, what happened now here, after a year or two, you are told that page 3 of 8 has got a typo error. Please correct the mistake. The analyst will go and look for the report on their typing folder and correct the mistake accordingly. But what happened is that they may not go to the last page to change that date. And the two scenarios is that either he may only press print current page and print only the page where he has made the correction and go to the person who initially commissioned the statement and ask them to initial that page and insert that page which correction in the report. Or he may print the entire page, the entire report, without changing the last date on the last page and look for the member who commissioned on their behalf or any other member and give them, because the date is there, the person who commissioned will sign. I'm not saying it is right, but that is what I think could have happened in this instance. That is my submission, Commissioners.